All right, 17. Antonius soon after said, I have often observed, as you mentioned, Crassius, that both you and other most accomplished orators, although in my opinion none was ever equal to you, have felt some agitation in entering upon their speeches. When I inquired into the reason of this and considered why a speaker, the more ability he possessed, felt the greater fear in speaking, I found that there were two causes of such timidity. One, that those whom experience and nature had formed for speaking well knew that the event of a speech did not always satisfy expectation, even in the greatest orators, and thus, as often as they spoke, they feared, not without reason, that the what sometimes happened might happen then. The other, of which I am often in the habit of complaining, is that men tried and approved in other arts, if they ever do anything with less success than usual, are thought either to have wanted inclination for it, or have failed in performing what they knew how to perform from ill health. Roscius, they say, would not act today, or he was indisposed. But if any deficiency is seen in the orator, it is thought to proceed from want of sense, and want of sense admits of no excuse, because nobody is supposed to have wanted sense because he was indisposed, or because such was his inclination. Thus we undergo a severe judgment in oratory, and judgment is pronounced upon us as often as we speak. If an actor is once mistaken in an attitude, he is not immediately considered to be ignorant of attitude in general, but if any fault is found in a speaker, there prevails forever, or at least for a very long time, a notion of his stupidity. 18. But in what you observed as to there being many things in which, unless the orator has a full supply of them from nature, he cannot be much assisted by a master, I agree with you entirely, and I regard to that point I have always expressed the highest approbation of the eminent teacher Apollonius of Albanda, who, though he taught for pay, would not suffer such as he judged could never become orators to lose their favor with him, and he sent them away with exhortations and encouragements to each of them to pursue that particular art for which he thought him naturally qualified. To the acquirement of other arts, it is sufficient for a person to resemble a man, and to be able to comprehend in his mind and retain in his memory what is instilled, or, if he is very dull, inculcated into him. No volubility of tongue is requisite, no quickness of utterance, none of those things which we cannot form for ourselves, aspect, countenance, look, voice, but in an orator the acuteness of the logicians, the wisdom of the philosophers, the language almost of poetry, the memory of lawyers, the voice of tragedians, the gesture almost of the best actors is required. Nothing, therefore, is more rarely found among mankind than a consummate orator, for qualifications which professors of other arts are commended for acquiring in a moderate degree, each in his respective pursuit, will not be perished in the orator unless they are all combined in him in the highest possible excellence. Yet observe, said Crassius, how much more diligence is used in one of the light and trivial arts than in this, which is acknowledged to be of the greatest importance. For I often hear Roscius say that he could never yet find a scholar that he was thoroughly satisfied with, not that some of them were not worthy of approbation, but because if they had any fault he himself could not endure it. Nothing, indeed, is so much noticed or makes an impression of such lasting continuance on the memory as that in which you give any sort of offense. To judge, therefore, of the accomplishments of the orator by comparison with this stage player, do you not observe how everything is done by him unexceptionably, everything with the utmost grace, everything in such a way as is becoming and as moves and delights all? He has accordingly long attained such distinction that in whatever pursuit a man excels, he is called a Roscius in his art. For my own part, while I desire this finish and perfection in an orator of which I fall so short myself, I act audaciously for if I wish indulgence to be granted to myself while I grant none to the others, for I think that he who has not abilities, who is faulty in action, who, in short, wants a graceful manner, should be sent off, as Apollonius advised, to that for which he has a capacity.